Hi students of class 10. Today Ashish is going to teach you economics. Please open page number 23 of your book. That is topic is historical changes in sectors. Okay. And this historical changes in sectors means among primary sector, secondary sector and tertiary sector has been defined in has been explained in your book via graphs. Come to page number 24. As you can see, there is one graph which shows the share of primary sector, secondary sector and tertiary sector. And the comparison is between 2 years. One is of 1973, another is of 2003. And the contribution and the topic is the heading GDP by primary, secondary and tertiary sector, means the contribution of primary sector, secondary sector and tertiary sector in GDP as compared between 2 years 1973 and 2003 is 1973. Contribution of primary sector is maximum, contribution of secondary sector is less than primary sector, and contribution of tertiary sector is more or less equal to primary sector. But in 2003, if we compare this, you will find the contribution of primary sector in GDP has become less, contribution of secondary sector has risen, it has become more than the primary sector, and the contribution of tertiary sector in GDP has become maximum amongst these three sectors if we compare these two over those 2 years. One is 1973 and another is 2003. Okay, now come to this. That shows surely by this graph, okay, this is the graph is given over there, but by this graph we can make it out. Yes, the contribution of tertiary sector has become more or prime in case of GDP in our country's GDP. And now what is the cause that tertiary sector has suddenly started to contribute more to the GDP of our country? Secondary also has done little bit much better, but the contribution of primary sector has gone down. And now you can see, now come to this graph number 2. This one, graph number 2, it shows share of sectors in GDP, means how all three sectors have contributed to the GDP at the percentage of all these three sectors in GDP. For example, primary sector's contribution has gone down, secondary sector is more or less equal or equivalent, and the contribution of tertiary sector has gone up. Now students, can you please find out the reason why this happened over this years, why suddenly tertiary sector started to contribute more to the GDP of a country? Primary sector has more or less remained stagnant, and in case of contribution of primary sector has gone down in the GDP of your country. Can you please tell me you just think of the answers, why this is happening over these years? It is a gap of between 1973 and 2003, this changes took place in all the three sectors. And it now come to third graph. I will answer this. First you see the third graph, and in third graph, as you can see, the share of sectors in employment percentage, how much each of these sectors contribute to the employment of a country. For example, primary sector earlier also used to, in 1973 also primary sector used to contribute, used to give employment to maximum number of people in our country. Secondary sector is far lesser than the primary sector, and tertiary sector is also employing not many people as compared to primary sector. But in 2000, when we compare that with another picture, the 2000 contribution of primary sector means primary sector is still employing maximum number of people in our country. Secondary sector is little bit has become better as far as employment is concerned, and tertiary sector also has become little bit better than the condition in 1973. Can you please tell me just think of the reasons? So if we come to this, why this change has taken place? Look, the contribution of primary sector has gone down. Reason is that automatically people started to farming. It's a regular and tedious work, since the sowing of seed till the ripening of fruit. Farmer continuously needs to take care of that their crops. And one more disadvantage is that nature with poor irrigation facilities, with farmers not having HYV seeds, and the vagaries of nature. Sometimes it rains too much, sometimes it's drought, it is sometimes lack of fertilizers, or farmers are unable to buy HYV seeds because of lack of capital. Contribution of primary sector has gone down. Okay. And when we come to secondary sector in India, the problem of secondary sector is that we need industries has a moratorium period of at least 7 to 10 years. For moratorium period means since the date of construction of the plant or factory, it takes around 5 or 7 years before it gets completed, and only after that it will start producing goods, and then only that company can start selling the products. And then first they need to break even. Means the point at which the cost is equal to selling price is equal to cost price. And problem of that is our country is that secondary sector government also doesn't want to invest too much in secondary sector. Reason being that by the time 7 or 10 years happen, other cheap products, or not cheap products, I will say other cheaper alternatives come into market. For example, if we try to make if Indian government invests in making a phone made by Indian company, and it takes around 7 to 10 years before a phone comes out of the production of that factory, and that time automatically the phone the companies which are already in this phone business, they must be coming with better phones. And worst part is that after 7 or 8 years, if the cost of production of phone by an Indian company is more than the phones produced by foreign companies, and plus foreign companies phone provides one more features as compared to Indian phones, so automatically people will go for that phones made by foreign companies. That will then Indian government is going to suffer a great loss in terms of money, in terms of time, and in terms of years. They will not be able to sustain in the market as against the better rivals who produces good, better quality products at a cheaper prices, and then customers will automatically buy the phones produced by the foreign companies. Now come to this share of sectors in employment. In case of employment also, you will notice that earlier also primary sector used to give employment to maximum number of people in India, and still also their contribution has gone down. Reason is that secondary sector's condition has remained more or less stagnant as far as their contribution and economy of country is concerned. And in case of tertiary sector, surely more number of people have become part of this tertiary or service sector, surely like doctors, lawyers, some software professionals, and it means people have become more educated and over the years. And yes, it is much better, much easy. Because you have a skill, and with that skill, once you acquire that, you can earn all throughout your life, your livelihood. And in case of primary sector, reason is that why still its contribution in economy is gaining less with the time, but they still employ the maximum number of employment to people. Reason is that like in agriculture sector, if people, for example, a farmer is working in a field, and automatically their family members will also help their farmer. They will also help their farmer, the guardian of the family. Yes, he is doing work. So automatically what happens, contribution where one person is only needed to do that work, more than one person, maybe even whole of the family is engaged in that agriculture sector, but the contribution of agriculture remains only that much. Whether 5 persons work on the same field or one person can do the work, and then also contribution is going to be of only one field, automatically that still in our country and plus lack of education on part of farmers. They automatically, if the farmer's family, they are poor and they are unable to get educated, so they remain more or less only in that sector, because in secondary sector they need some skills, or they need to migrate to cities before they get employment. And in case of tertiary sector, as they don't have proper qualifications, they are not going to get land up job in tertiary sector. So automatically they will more or less gain employment in primary sector only. This is the reason is still primary sector, as far as economy is concerned, share of economy GDP is concerned in our country is less, but the maximum number of people it gives employment. So this is the reason. Yes, with this 3 graphs you can make out the historical changes in sector. Okay students, for today only this much.